We've heard great messages from both Brian and Stephanie, and both of their messages serve as a perfect precursor to what I want to discuss, which is how organizations can better establish environments of accommodation. Specifically, I want to talk about the training we've developed to do just that. Now, my remarks will be delivered in conjunction with the breakout sessions that follow, which will highlight key tools and concepts that we are using in the training. My purpose is twofold. First, we want to give you tools that can be helpful to your organization, whether you're just starting to think about how to address faith and belief at work, or if you're trying to improve existing initiatives. We really hope the tools that we talk about, you can go back and implement immediately. And second, to be frank, we want to work with you. We believe that we have a really good product that can make a real impact. And we hope by the end of our day today, you are as excited about what we are doing as we are. Now, I want to start with a short message from Marcy Sweetland from Equinix. Equinix is one of our most recent partners that had asked us to come in and help them in their process of standing up a new faith-oriented employee resource group, or affinity group, and enhance their accommodation efforts around faith and belief. So I'll turn some time to Marcy. Thank you, Marcy. We're really grateful for the partnership with Equinix and the wonderful efforts they're making to advance faith and belief accommodation in the workplace. And we're excited to keep working with them in the future, obviously for the employee, their benefits, but also for their bottom line. So what are we discussing in our training to help organizations develop these environments of accommodation? Let me start by talking about the key elements of our training. Now, every organization that we work with is different. Every organization requires a slightly different approach, a tailored approach, while at the same time incorporating key principles. For some organizations, the approach is more based in a diversity, equity, inclusion initiative. For others, it's really focused on wanting to stand up a faith-oriented employee resource group, or ERG. And in some, the need is really policy-focused. What is the right policy to put in place across an enterprise to address faith and belief in the workplace? To date, most of the organizations that we've worked with have been more under the umbrella of diversity, equity, inclusion, be it in management practices or in the general working environment, or through the establishment of ERGs. Now, as you see, I'm putting up a slide here. As you can see in that slide, we found that the following learning framework is very effective. And you can see there, it's got three parts: knowledge, skills, and action. And let me just talk briefly about each of those. First of all, knowledge. What are the laws? What are the policies in place that we all need to be aware of? These are laws that exist across the United States, corporate America, and then there are also policies that may be industry specific or even company specific. And it's really important that leaders in the DEI environment and also employees throughout the organization understand those laws and policies. And the second part of knowledge is the business case. Why are we doing this? Why are we talking about it? Why is it important beyond just the right thing to do or a good thing to do? Why is this affecting the bottom line? And that's where data is really important. And one of the things that we really focus on in our training is the data to help stakeholders and employees understand why this is good for business. So that's piece one, knowledge. The second pillar or structural piece of our training is skills. Now that we have that knowledge, what do we need to do to implement? What does implementation look like? What does religious accommodation look like? And what are the skills that we need to have to establish that? There we talk about things like religious literacy. We talk about principles of accommodation. In fact, on religious literacy, I'll say that's one of the topics that we will talk about in our breakout sessions, a session led by Kristen Farrington. Principles of accommodation, the slide now that you see in front of you, I'm not going to go into detail here, but these are the kind of concepts that we dig down into and help employees understand, what does this mean in your workplace? How do we address these kind of principles? How do these principles lead us or guide us in the situations that we confront? We also talk about principles for establishing faith-oriented initiatives, as you can see on this slide. Again, I'm not going to go into detail. And in fact, these points, these principles will be discussed by Kent Johnson in our other breakout here in a few minutes. But these kind of concepts are really critical to establishing environments of accommodation. And how do we do that? Now, this is more than just a list of do's and don'ts. One of our intents is to help employees or participants in our training really get practice and understanding, get comfortable with these concepts and how they apply. And we do that through a number of different learning modes or teaching techniques. Now, this next slide is showing you various of our case studies, our video case studies. Over the years, we've developed several video case studies that take on actual situations. These were situations that actually happened in workplaces. And we put those, we obviously have those in a dramatization, and we explore the different variables, the different aspects of each of these cases, and put the participants or challenge the participants to react and think about how they might respond to those different scenarios. These have been very effective as a teaching tool for the participants in our training, and we're really proud of what we've developed here. As you can see, each of these take on a slightly different topic, whether it's an employee to employee or supervisor relations, or being caught off guard, or policies. Lots of different topics that we talk about in each of these video case studies. We also use written case studies, and the written case studies are really to highlight how different companies have addressed faith and belief in the workplace, and highlighting the successes they've had and also the challenges. And let me just talk about one very briefly. One of our case studies actually focuses on the story at Texas Instruments. Texas Instruments, years ago, when they were thinking about standing up a faith-oriented ERG, Employees Resource Group, there were some employees in the company that were worried about how that might impact the existing LGBTQ+ resource group. Would there be tension? Would there be conflict? Now, we don't believe there needs to be conflict. In fact, we don't believe there should be conflict between such groups, that it's perfectly possible to have groups work together, exist together, and thrive together. And the story at Texas Instruments tells just that. And it goes into their experience of how these two groups not only learned to coexist, but learned to thrive together and built very strong relationships that still exist today. And so these case studies that we've written really help tell the story of companies that have addressed this successfully and how they've overcome challenges that they've faced. Now this section, this skill section, is really where people start learning the concepts and becoming comfortable with them. They start understanding how to apply it, how these things can really make a difference in their workplace. And that leads us to the third section, or the third pillar of our training, which is action. Now, the action is pretty self-explanatory. Here we talk about how these skills can be incorporated, how to create a strategy for implementation in your work, in your work environment, specific to that work environment, specific to that company. And of course, we talk about and provide the resources necessary to do that. Now, we've seen really good success and very positive feedback from the organizations we've worked with this learning framework and learning approach. As I said, it's not just about a list of do's and don'ts, but it's a chance to practice and experience and really understand how these concepts and principles apply. It also gives participants an understanding of what's going on around them that they may not be aware of. It's very eye-opening, insightful, and helpful, and it's a wonderful opportunity for participants or coworkers to talk about these issues and actually start the conversation so that they can make headway. So at this point, I've given you a brief but overview of what our training looks like, and now I want to introduce our sessions. And again, our two breakout sessions are meant to do two things. One, give you some tools that we hope will be helpful to you in your organization, and also to give you a sense for what an aspect of our training looks like. In this case, we're going to be focusing on religious literacy at work and building successful faith-based employee resource groups. So our first breakout, led by Kristen Farrington, is on religious literacy at work. And we will introduce Kristen and Kent actually in this session. But for those of you that would like to join Kristen, we invite you to do that. And breakout B will be led by Kent Johnson, and that will be focused again on building a successful faith-based employee resource group. So at this time, we invite you to choose the session that you'd like to attend, and we'll see you in the session. Thank you.